Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today we're looking at my Phalaenopsis Chiang Sapphire Baby Blue. This orchid has been part of my orchid collection for quite a few years. I think at least 4 years, if not more. This time around, it produced 2 spikes, but because it actually has 2 plants together, it's a mother and child situation. And I have never made a point to divide them, which we can talk a little bit about that later in the video. This orchid, this time around, 2 spikes like I said, and this year is the year that it performed the best out of all the times that it has bloomed for me. 2 spikes with a lot more buds. This orchid does not have fragrance, at least not from what I can detect, but it does have sequential bloomer capability. So if the spikes are green, don't cut them off just yet because it may continue to bloom more. This particular one though, because of my environment, for whatever reason, it doesn't really quite bloom sequentially. Every time after it finished the bloom done with, it just kind of abort the spike. But the same orchid, back in Asia, my family actually keeps a pretty good record of their orchid, the exact same cross. Their orchid would sequentially bloom 2 to 3 times a year, and I think that has to do with the temperature, the environment, the humidity, because I can tell you they don't care for the orchid the same way we do at our parts of the world. They basically put their orchids on their balcony, and that's it. And they may water it, but I can tell you my family doesn't fertilize their orchid, and that orchid is still blooming 2 to 3 times a year. So I find that really amazing. Okay, so this is a month later. You can see the first part of the spike were bare already, so this is second half of its bloom cycle. This orchid is in semi-hydro. Initially, this orchid did not respond very well to semi-hydro transition, and it didn't grow that many roots into the media and into the reservoir. And that's why you see some of the older leaves were sort of wrinkled and never recover from it, because it didn't have enough roots then. But this year, this time around, it decided that it likes semi-hydro, so it grew so many more roots into the media and into the reservoir. Just all of a sudden, like this year, it decides that it likes it. So it was just growing vigorously. Some Phalaenopsis orchids, their leaves never get rehydrated if they have that wrinkle. Some do recover fully, but this one just never did. But the new leaves, the latest leaves, and based on its overall growth pattern, I think this orchid is now properly hydrated. It's just that the older leaves just never quite come back to its original glory, if you will. In terms of care, with this orchid, I provide 1/4 cup of water, and this water also contains 1/4 strength fertilizer, and that's pretty much it. Once a week, I give this orchid that amount of water, and toward the end of the last week of the month, I usually would give this orchid a flush. I don't necessarily soak this orchid all that much, but I will at least flush it so that it can wash away some of the salt buildup from the fertilizer. So this is going back in time to show you how this orchid, was growing while it was producing flower spikes. So obviously, this orchid is a mother and child situation, and at one point I really was seriously thinking about separating them, but in the end I did not do that because, as you know, I have a lot of orchids and I cherish my horizontal space dearly, and because it's the same type of orchid, I really don't want to separate them and then have to use another space for the same type of orchid, so I decided to keep them together. And I was thinking, if I keep them together and if they both bloom, like in this case, each one of them gave me one spike, then I have a better display without having to spend extra horizontal space for the same orchid. So that's my thinking at the time. So they are together, and I think I'll continue to keep them together. Similarly, I have some orchids that have keikis, and I am yet to separate the keikis from the mother. Aside from the fact that some of the keikis are not ready to be separated yet, for the ones that are big enough that I could separate, I still keep them intact with the mother, because the same thing, I want to conserve horizontal space, and I really don't want to, have the same orchids in multiple containers. In a way, for keikis, for people, I know there are people who love keikis and who are thrilled when they get keikis. I am not that thrilled when I have keikis. If you look at this orchid hobby, keikis are things that I consider sort of low on return of my investment, because the ROI is low. Why? Because keikis, it takes a long time for them to become mature to flower, and if you kill them early, you spend all this time and effort and you don't see any result, right? And I'm pretty confident I won't kill my keiki mostly, and so it's gonna take me a lot of time, so I much rather just let it attach to the mother or the flower spike that it grows out of, and try to be as efficient with my space as possible. Like, if you use the financial term, I think keikis are more liabilities, and then mature plants are the actual assets. So I never really go out of my way to try to make keikis. If they come out naturally, fine, but I won't. Purposely producing keiki is just not something I would do personally. And here I want to answer a question. This question is asking if I'm getting more orchids. I seem to have more space for it. And my answer for now is probably not, because I think right now spending an hour and a half watering all my orchids on a weekly basis is that good balance, good saturation point that I'm not willing to go above it. Because this is a hobby, I don't want this hobby to become a burden in my life. Sure, I have more space, but do I want to spend more time watering my orchids? The answer is no. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!